Can you explain a little bit more about integration? On the one hand, it seems like a very complex process, yet on the other, it's something we do all the time.
Sure, indeed, the core of merit is promoting the capacity to integrate information. I think oftentimes when people think about this, and of course we've referred to it as metacognition throughout, when people think about metacognition, they think of an activity that's performed late at night or in a private place. But really it's ongoing every day and is essential for human functioning. But it's also incredibly complex. And so maybe to illustrate, we can just talk about what happens when you're forming an idea of someone else. Imagine you meet someone for the first time. Say it's at a social gathering. Immediately there are feelings in your body when you see this person. You also notice things about them. For example, you notice what expression they have on their face in that moment. You also notice how they're dressed, how they move. You notice the qualities of their speech. So in addition to things they're saying, how quickly do they talk? What sort of language do they use? So all this is going into an immediate experience of meeting another person. But also you know their personal characteristics. You notice how other people react to them. Just how that person treats you. They're the things that they believe and value. There's a knowledge of how people have acted in similar situations when you've met them in other places. And somehow this and many, many, many other things have to all be fit together into forming a picture of who that person is. And that's what we mean by integration. And it's automatic. And if that's not complex enough, of course, you meet that person at multiple other times. Perhaps you run into them at the grocery store. You continue to meet them at social gatherings. And every time you do the same thing, except for now you have to combine all of those different experiences into a single sense of who that other person is. And that tells you how that person is different ultimately than other people. So imagine for a moment if you couldn't do this. Everyone ultimately would look the same. Or at the best, they would be a collection of things you didn't know how to fit together. And meeting them each time, you would have little sense of how in the world you should interact with them and get along with them. So this sense of the other person, again, is not just an intellectual activity. It guides how you behave with them. It tells you what you should count on them for. So this idea is also not this is a good or bad person, but this is a person who's useful in a certain circumstance or in a certain context. So the ideas you form of one person might tell you there's certain things you should turn to them for, whereas other things are not likely to be helpful. The interpersonal world would be confusing and you wouldn't know who you could turn to. The same thing is true if we think about integration for sense of self. So this is also not something you just perceive or a single thing. But if you think of who you are in any one particular moment, they're the feelings in your body, perhaps tense, perhaps relaxed. There's also the context in which you're observing yourself or wondering what's happening with yourself. If you think about who you are at a moment, there are all the different people who you're attached to in the world. They're your own personal characteristics. There's your sense of who you are in terms of what you hope for, what you've accomplished. There's a sense of how others treat you, about how others see what's happening. There's your own expectations, values, the things you've accomplished, failed. Again, it's a gigantic number of things that's impossible to detail, which all have to be fit together into a picture of who you are at the moment. And as in the case of thinking about other people, you do this repeatedly over time. And again, not just late at night, but you do it when you're in a restaurant and you have a contentious exchange with a waiter. You do it at work when you're planning out what next step to take. Do it in the morning when you're driving to work. And all these different views you have of yourself have to be fit together with previous views into a larger view of who you are. So synthesis, therefore, is a big deal in regular life. It's a core for adaptation. It's how you know how to respond to things, how you know who to trust. Of course, your integrated sense of who you are and who other people are influence each other. How I understand myself has to do with how I understand other people. My sense of who you are determines how I respond to you, ultimately all leading to a larger worldview. An ongoing automatic process, but one that involves reflection that's essential to human adaptation and rests at the core of what merit seeks to accomplish.